I'll tell you a little bit about myself and a little bit about what I went through during World War II. First of all, I was born on the northwest side of Chicago. I was raised with a family of 8. There was 3 boys, 3 girls, and my mom and dad. My 2 brothers and I were all in service at the same time. My older brother was a combat engineer. I was in the infantry and a tank platoon, and my younger brother was a merchant marine over in the other side. I'd like to take a few minutes of my time to witness my faith in the Lord, and that He watches over us, and He cares for us, and that He pulled me through my ordeals in Europe. About 80 years ago, some of you and your fathers and I were in the service in World War II. Before I left for the draft board, my family and I gathered around the dining room table, held hands, and we read the 14th chapter of John. Let not your heart be troubled, but believe in God. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I wouldn't have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and take you unto myself, that where I am, you may be also. I had a few unusual things happen to me while I was in the Army and infantry in Europe, and I'd like to share them with you at this time. What was it like for me during this time in service? Was I nervous? Anybody who says they weren't is not telling the truth. Was I lonesome? Yes, at times I was. Only when we weren't doing anything. We trained for the invasion right here at Camp Atterbury. We were supposed to be the backup forces. However, we were alerted and rushed over on the Queen Elizabeth. It normally took 10 days, 12 nights to go over by merchant ship. We went over on 4 nights and 3 days. On the 3rd day out, I was up in the little hole up at the top on duty, and the alarm went off. We were attacked by submarines. The ship was so fast, you could actually feel it go forward and go faster, and we outran the submarines. We landed in Southampton, England, and was stationed at the Cheltenham National Racetrack, where we cleaned our guns and we went into a staging area. 2 mornings later, we went across the channel, a small landing craft, landing in about 4 to 5 feet of water and running to the shores of Normandy. I was a platoon sergeant. I had 33 men under me. 10 men in the guns positions and 1 driver on each truck. We fought our way north through France, Belgium, Luxembourg, and into Germany. We had some light things happen to us and some bad things happen to us. On the light side, we advanced and took over a small town and dug in for the night. I told my squad leaders to keep an eye open on the crossroads. We were from Headquarters Company Anti-Tank Platoon. If anything moved, shoot and ask questions later. I just got up into my foxhole when the gun went off. I jumped out of the hole, got 3 men, and we went to the gun and asked what he was shooting at. And they said, oh, there was a truck coming down the road real slow, lights off, so we shot at it. When we went to check it out, there was a big black dead cow in the road, which had crossed in front of it. Another time we were dug in for the night, I had my phone line between me and my first gunner in my foxhole when all of a sudden it heard a crank on the phone, and my biggest, bravest gunner could not talk. All he could say was, I can. Nothing else come out. I got up, took 4 men, and we captured 4 Germans walking right past the gun, while he and the squad leader froze with fear. Another time we were in a pretty heated battle, and I was pinned down with gunfire while walking through a farmer's field. There was a small haystack there, so I jumped underneath the haystack, and to my surprise, someone else had gotten there before me. It was a big fat sow, and she gave birth to 10 little ones before I could get out of there. On the serious side, the next event was not so funny. I jumped on the running board of the truck and pointed for a gun position for the driver to pull into, when all of a sudden a German shot at me. He missed, hit the gas can on the side of the truck, and the can blew up in my face. First thing I did was put my hands in my face and jump to the ditch in the ground. I laid in the field hospital for 18 days with my wrists pinned to the sheets. During the day, the hot sun beat down on the tent, and the boric acid ointment would get hard, it would melt, and at night it would get hard. Most of you have heard of Hogan's Heroes and TV on Stalag 13. Well, let me assure you, it was nothing like that in any of these stalags. Private Ryan movie was realistic. That showed it the way it was. After fighting 4 major battles in France, Belgium, Luxembourg, Germany, I was taken prisoner of war in the Battle of the Bulge. They couldn't get ammunition to us. We were completely surrounded. Before I talk about the camp, I'd like to share a few weeks of unusual happenings with you. Let me set the stage. Make believe you were there with me. The weather was real cold. There was 16 to 18 inches of snow on the ground. We had been dug in our holes for about a month with little fighting going on or shooting going on. We were waiting for the Russians to catch up to us. We were covering a 28-mile division front on the war front. There was 4 armies lined up along a line to push into Germany. The British were on the north. The First Army, which I was in second. General Patton was third. And finally, the 9th Army. We were given orders to move forward and take a town about 20 miles away. At the same time, the other armies were told to do the same thing. Our outfit didn't have much trouble as we were walking through the Ardennes forest. The other armies ran into trouble and bogged down. It was snowing real hard. The Air Force was grounded, and our communications were cut off. We took the town, dug in for the night, sent out men to survey the area. But at the break of day, the Germans bombarded us. General von Rotstein and the Germans had completely surrounded us. During this time, I can remember my first squad leader laying about 20 feet from me, and he was hit, got his leg blown off. Another time we were under fire, and my company commander and I were running for the same foxhole. I let him take the foxhole, and I went up the side of the road and fell in a ditch. The next shell came and landed in the foxhole, killing my company commander. I got shrapnel in my leg and dirt all around me. We fought for 18 days trying to get back to our lines, but we ran completely out of ammunition. The Air Force support was still grounded. We fixed bayonets, and we fought another couple of days with fixed bayonets before we destroyed our guns and our ammunition. There was 8,663 men killed in the Battle of the Bulge and 7,001 captured. Out of my 33 men, 7 of us came back. We were taken prisoner of war by the SS troops, black shoes and all. It was the policy of the SS troops never to take a prisoner at this time. So we're pretty sure what was going to happen to us once they got us. We were lined up alongside the cut in the road. A machine gun set up as machine gun, loaded it with ammunition, and the commanding officer was hollering at it to hurry up. One of our men was singing, "Nearer, my God, to thee," and we were all on our knees. All of a sudden, another German officer came up and told the gunner to take down his gun, saving our life. We were taken in small groups of 30 men. The German officer told me that he and a couple of guards were going to take us to a concentration camp. As he and I were walking side by side down the road, he told me in perfect English that he would be walking 25 kilometers to the train station. He asked me where I was from, and I says, all I can tell you is my name, rank, and serial number. He told me his name was Hans, and that he used to live in the United States. After walking and talking a while, he asked me, where in Chicago did you live? I told him around Bell Mountain Central. He says, is Walgreens still on the corner? Candies on the other corner. I said, yes, but how do you know? He told me he lived around Irving Park in Ashland and went to school there. He said he and his parents had gone back to Germany for a visit, and they wouldn't let him come back. They put him in the army in the late 30s, and that he was still fighting. His parents had both been killed, and he had been shot in the leg and was going back for treatment. We walked about 12 miles the first day, passing through small towns where people threw rocks at us. We stopped for the night at an old bombed-out church and fell asleep on the floor. The next day we walked another 4 miles and got on a train. We were locked in small baggage cars, about 60 men to a car, along with about 600 other prisoners of war. The train pulled out of the station into the yard where it was supposed to wait until the dark before it moved on. However, while we were waiting there, the Americans had different ideas. Plane flew over, dropped red flares about 500 yards from the train. This meant bombers, this is your target for the night, hit it. The first wave came over. Luckily, the bombs fell short of the target. Before the next wave came over, we tried to knock the side of the boxcar out. All 60 of us ran from one side of the boxcar to the other against the wall, but no luck. We all know there was going to be another group of bombers coming over. So we got down on our knees, and one of the men, the chaplain, opened the Bible up and read from the 12th chapter of John. Let not your heart be troubled, but believe in God. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I wouldn't have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and take you unto myself, that where I am, you may be also. Sorry. He also sang a song, with someone like you, a pal so good and true. And whenever I hear that song sung, I find myself right back there in that box. The next wave of bombers came over, and they hit much closer as the stones and shrapnel hit the side of the car. The guy next to me hollered that he had been hit, but when I pulled up his jacket and shirt, he only had a splinter of wood on his back. He was okay. When things calmed down, someone looked out the little 12 by 6 inch window at the end of his car and saw that some cars had been hit badly and that the guards were pulling the people out of the train. After switching cars out of the train and removing the damaged cars, we were on our way. We arrived in Stalag 9A, Frankfurt, where we were interviewed and separated into different groups. They clipped off our dog tags. Drivers went one way, the non-coms another way, and the officers another way. The officers went to Siberia. After about a week, we were all sent different places. I wound up in Stalag 9B, which was in 40 miles south of Berlin in a little town called Kassel, Kassel. We arrived at our camp and were greeted by the company commander, who made us strip down to just our pants, took our shoes off, our shirt off, our jackets off, and we stood out there in our bare feet. Some of the men froze their toes and turned black. I kept jumping up and down, so I was pretty lucky, except my toes turned white every winter. We were assigned where to live. When I arrived in the barrack, who should be in charge of the barrack but Hans, the fellow who saved our life in the first place. What did the barrack look like? It was about 3 square blocks, barbed wire fence around it. At each corner was a watchtower with a guard with floodlights, machine guns pointing down at us. They were pretty good shots too, because nobody made it across that third fence. The barracks were similar to our GI buildings on the outside, but the inside was jammed solid with men. The bunks were 4 high, made of wood, no mattresses, no blankets, no pillows, just straw. I had the 3rd bunk up. My first gunner had the 4th bunk up. So we decided to put all the straw in my bunk and sleep in my bunk and then take the stuff out of his bunk. Many others did the same. There was one pot-belly stove in the barrack, and the fire went out at night. There was 100 men in each barrack, one central washroom about a block away. You didn't take that long walk very often unless you had to go to corporate, but you had to. There was one central mess hall on the opposite end of camp, where the food was passed out through an open window. You went up to that open window and got your food and went back to your barrack. What was the menu? The menu was 1/2 a canteen cup of soup and one piece of bread once a day. If you're lucky, you may get a piece of horse meat. We ate between 12 o'clock and 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And you had better be there. If you weren't there to get your food, you didn't eat that day. When I was captured, I weighed 185. When I was liberated, I weighed 134. The only way you could get extra chow was to put in railroad tracks in the evening. Every chance I got, I volunteered to put in railroad tracks. And we weren't really doing anything. We would take the long strap, take it to the track itself. 4 of us would put that track and lay it down, and that's all you did. You couldn't do any more. You couldn't touch the track. When we first came into camp, we would have morning exercise. We would throw around a homemade baseball, but every once in a while we had problems. But every weaker, we got weaker and weaker, and they wouldn't come out. We brushed our teeth. We used salt. We brushed our teeth with salt. I didn't have a shower for 6 months. The shower looked like a butcher's freezer with a large glass door. We went in 20 at a time and thought that they were going to put gas in there rather than put water in there. We had heard of this about the gas, and we weren't sure that we really wanted to get a shower. How did we spend our time during the day? We set up classes. We had one class at the end of the barrack, a Bible class. They had Swiss had given us 6 Bibles, and we would read and discuss the Bible for 4 hours in the morning. Often wandering way off the subject to our personal experiences. We took turns reading to the group. If you didn't want to join, you didn't have to. Sunday mornings, we had regular church services. We had Protestant in one barrack and Catholic in the other. We had the entire service, the choir, the singing, the sermon, and all. At the other end, we had chefs talking to us. We had cooking classes. And at the cooking class, you talked about cooking, candy, bakery goods, you name it, we had it. We gave all our scratch, we got a hold of scratch paper, and we all made recipe books. So, dreaming about what we were going to eat if we ever escaped. Classes were held during the day only, so, as we had no electricity in the building. At night we sat around and told stories. Every night we would hear over the loudspeaker how the Americans were getting defeated and that the Germans would soon rule the world. However, every night Hans would sneak off in a corner and tell one of us how the Americans were defeating the Germans and how much closer they were coming to our camp. There were times when Hans had to be very strict. He carried a short whip with him and gave you a swat in the backside once in a while. They switched guards frequently, so we didn't know who was going to be on any night. In the morning, we had to line up 10 across, 10 deep. So we would line up 9 across, 11 deep, just to goof them up. They'd get so mad they didn't know what to do. But discipline was really strict. If you did what you were supposed to do, everything was okay. If you didn't, you were put on solitary confinement for 7 days and given water only. Sickness at camp. We had a doctor from Switzerland who came every other week, and you had better be sick. because he had no infirmary and very little medicine. Most patients had mental problems and diarrhea. We had other problems at camp. Our own fighter planes would shoot up the camp and kill a few men each time. We tried escaping by digging under the barracks, getting into the sewer system, but it took months, but we failed. I met Hans in the washroom one night, and he told me that the Americans were getting closer, that they were going to move us further inland. We passed the word around, and we decided that we were all going to act real sick. When we went out for roll call, the Germans were so anxious to leave that they left and locked the gates behind us. After a few minutes, Hans, who we also thought had left with the Germans, came running back, just in his t-shirt, no shoes, no pants, and he looked just like one of us. It was only when our fighter pilots flew over, tilted his wings, which meant he knew that we were there. A couple hours later, General Patton came and knocked the fences down, right through the barbed wire fence, and liberated us. My wife and I, my folks, had received a telegram saying I was missing in action. They hadn't heard from me for many months. The first thing we did after being liberated was to write our names and addresses on a pad of paper so that the officers could take them. So they sent that telegram to our home that we had been liberated and would soon see us. We were airlifted to Camp Lucky Strike in France, where we were deloused, given hair and beard shots, cuts. We received shots, and we received new clothing. The next day, those of us who had enough points were able to come back to the United States. Points for each month of service, points for being overseas, points for each battle you were in, points for being a prisoner of war. We boarded planes and we flew to Boston, dropping off some men and continuing to Billy Mitchell Field outside of Milwaukee. We were picked up by the Fort Sheridan MPs and were processed through and given a 30-day recuperation furlough in Miami Beach, Florida. We were processed so fast that when I called home from Fort Sheridan that we would be coming home soon, they couldn't believe it because they had received a telegram that morning that I had been liberated. When I walked in the front door, my wife and family were there to greet me. It was funny though, they just stared at me. They were afraid to touch me because I looked so peaked and so thin. I'll never forget. I was so embarrassed. We were going to have coffee and we were standing around the dining table when an airplane flew over. Flew over the house pretty low, and I automatically dove underneath the table, punched in the wall with my hands over my head. Everybody just stood there and looked at me, and we all had a good laugh. Oh yes, I forgot to mention, Hans came back to the States. We vouched for him. Later, I have lost contact with him because he moved to Colorado. In closing, I would like to say, each one of us is going to have a trying experience in our life. Some may not be as drastic as others. Just remember, the Lord is on your side. Don't be afraid to talk to him. He's right there to help you whenever you need him. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to witness my faith and trust in the Lord for all that He has done for me. I'd like